All right, good evening, everyone. It is time to start the meeting. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda below. Upon request to the superintendent, the district shall make reasonable accommodation for a person with disabilities to be able to participate in this meeting. I call this meeting to order. Hopefully you do the roll call.
Mr. Alabré, Mr. Arnold, Mrs. Bruderly here, Mrs. Greatorex here, Ms. Kangas here, Mr. Lundy
Here.
Mrs. Guerra, Mr. Rohinder, Mr. Patel
Here.
Ms. Rafferty here.
It's a good thing we didn't adapt for spring break. All right. We will move on to approval of the meeting minutes from the meeting from March 20th, 2023.
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the attached minutes from March 20th, 2023 as presented.
I support. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from March 20th, 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Board policy provides that the superintendent of schools shall prepare an agenda for all board meetings as directed by the president of the Board of Education.
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the approval of the agenda for tonight, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. It has been approved. We on to school presentations. The WISD My Future Fund. Sarah Saylor, WIS Children's Saving Account Coordinator, will share a presentation.
That's me.
That's you.
Whatever you want.
This is right.
Yeah, there's no microphone there, so.
So just speak
we just act
loudly.
like it, yeah. Gives you a place where you can stop.
And then you all have received the packet of the slides. Okay, I just want to make sure that if I'm referencing something that I know that you all have it in front of you. All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Board of Trustees here. I'm Sarah Saylor. I am the Children's Savings Account Coordinator at the WISD. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm really excited to be able to share with you tonight about My Future Fund, which is a new initiative that we're launching this spring in collaboration with Washington County government. So My Future Fund is a children's savings account program, and its goal is to provide a jump start to students who are enrolled in Washington County public schools and public school academies to give them that jump start for college and career training. It is funded through a very generous investment by the Washington County Board of Commissioners using both American Rescue Plan Act funds as well as general funds over the next 4 years. So they're providing this initial investment over these 4 years to really get this program up and running. That investment includes money for children's savings accounts, which we're going to talk about in a minute, as well as the operational expenses that go with running a program of this size. And this investment comes out of the board's commitment to equity in our community. So this amount of funds is really there to provide that opportunity. I also want to highlight our Community Advisory Committee, which is made up of stakeholders from across the county who've been instrumental in helping us get feedback and recommendations for this program. One of your very own staff members, Craig McCullough, is on our advisory committee and helping to help us shape this initiative. The goals of this program are to provide equitable opportunities to local students and families in order to increase college expectations, increase the number of students completing post-secondary programming, and bring parents into the financial mainstream. These goals are based on the research around children's savings account programs. These programs are across the nation. They've been around for over a decade in tiny towns and also in entire states. So the goals are really based on what is the research telling us that these programs can accomplish, and then we're using those goals to help us guide our work. And the final goal with this program is really around addressing those educational disparities that were exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, with a particular emphasis on students in high poverty districts. I also, before we move on, want to acknowledge the amazing work of the WISD and some of my colleagues that are here supporting our presentation tonight as well. As we think about the goals of this program, there are several elements of it. So this is on the page 4 of your packet. The first element of the My Future Fund program is the My Future Fund account. Every eligible student in Washtenaw County will receive a free My Future Fund account with a starting deposit of $25. The funds in these accounts are pooled together in an omnibus account that the WISD stewards, but it is held by the Michigan Education Savings Plan and managed by TAA CREF. So the money is pooled all collectively together until it is time for those students to withdraw it for qualified expenses for college or career training. When students are ready to withdraw that funds to use, they'll be able to put in a request and we'll be able to give them those dollars for them to use for their secondary education. And the goal with this account is that we're linking it in a portal so families will still be able to log in and see how is my investment doing, how is this growing, and over time, as we're able to raise additional dollars, there'll be opportunities for more funds to be added into these accounts, really building that out for students. A second element of the program is the COVID recovery deposit. These funds are allocated specifically for students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. We're going to require consent from families so that we can determine the eligibility for those particular students, because we know that that is protected educational information. So families will give consent that we can check their eligibility. And once we determine that they do meet the qualifications for that additional deposit, those funds will go into their My Future Fund account as well. And those COVID recovery deposit dollars are time limited based on the pandemic funding from ARPA. And at the end of the 25-26 school year, then that will be the end of those deposits for those students. The third component to the program is around that ongoing support and education for families as they think about how they plan and save for college and career training. We're partnering with the Michigan Education Savings Program to help families open up their own individual savings accounts, investment accounts that can be linked to their My Future Fund account so that they can begin to sort of set up their own savings if they haven't already around getting prepared for college and career training. We also plan to provide a lot of support and education around how to save, how do you think about some of the other resources that are available. And we really hope to partner with districts around financial literacy curriculum as well as career awareness instruction so that we can collaborate to provide that additional support to families. Another point that I do want to mention about the My Future Fund account is that families will have the opportunity to opt out. So if they don't want to receive an account, they'll fill out a form that says, I don't want to participate in this program, and their information will not be added into the portal, into the My Future Fund account. But they will still receive information that comes home in backpacks and that type of thing about the program overall. So the My Future Fund accounts, I want to just tell you a little bit more about that. The elementary students who will receive an account, they'll get accounts for the next 4 years. We're going to start off tentatively, we're enrolling 1st and 5th graders this year so that we can build up by that 25-26 school year to all 1st through 8th graders. So this year will be 1st through 5th, 1st and 5th, next year 1st and 5th, and so on until we get 1st through 8th grade in that final year. And then we'll begin to enroll 1st graders. We will be using, the WIC will be using the fall pupil membership count from the student data system, the Michigan student data system, to determine who gets accounts in each cohort year. That will be the information that we'll pull from. If a student came into the district after that, then next year when we pull that information, they'll receive an account in the next year with their cohort. So students will be caught up, but that's the data that we're using both for the accounts as well as for that 475 through the student data system. And I did share that families can opt out if they do not wish to participate, and we'll be using directory information to populate the portal account. So if families have opted out of having their directory information used, we ask that you help us get that information so we don't put their information into that account, but they can always request to be added in if they want. You can see on the next slide our tentative enrollment schedule, so that really by that final year, we've got all through 1st through 8th graders enrolled in our program. So you might be saying, okay, so what does this mean for Dexter? What does this mean for our students? Over the next 4 years, we estimate that about 2,100 of your students will be enrolled in this program and receive over $160,000 that they'll be able to use for their post-secondary expenses. in the MOU that you received, our hope is that we are working collaboratively to make sure that this program is strong and robust. We know that you have strong ties with your students and families, as we want to work with you to make sure that we're getting the information to families. For what we're offering, or we commit to, is all the operations around this program, providing the communications, the templates, the handouts, the flyers, where we can show up where you need us to show up, to talk about this program, and all of the logistics that go behind the scenes. What we're looking to you to help us with is to give us the approval that we can pull that directory data and put it into the parent portal, the My Future Fund portal, for people to be able to see what they're earning in their accounts, to help us with that outreach support, getting those flyers into backpacks, and to partner on financial literacy and career development activities. On the next slide, it talks about our timeline. So right now we're really in those final moments of getting all these pieces together. We know this is a robust timeline, but we also really want to make sure that that first cohort of kids is able to get their account set up before the end of the school year. So in April, we're getting those MOUs finalized, we're presenting to you. Then the middle of May is when we launch the program. When we launch, we'll get the word out to families, we'll give them an opportunity to opt out and also fill out the consent form, so that then their accounts will be active in the summer. We'll send out information to families at that time about how to log in, how to see their information, how to see how much they have in their accounts. Then we'll be doing lots of outreach. We look to you to help us know where should we go, where should we be, to talk to families about this program, especially back to school. You know, that's a great opportunity to connect with families. And then it'll be time to roll the ball again in the winter with the next cohort of students. I think that what's really exciting for me about this initiative is that it is community-wide. It's a way for us to build scaffolding and infrastructure to address educational disparities that often can be barriers to students being able to access post-secondary education. So this is providing a community-wide approach to supporting students and families as they think about higher education. I'm really excited to be part of this initiative, to hear your questions, and to partner with you this year and beyond so that we can make these things possible for students in Washington County. Am I allowed to say, do you have any questions?
Guess I'm kind of curious.
Yeah.
To really follow how the money works.
Yeah.
Basically, if you got 160,000, that's over 4 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's about $8 a student on average. Actually, it's going to be different. Minimum would be $25.
Correct.
So at the end of 4 years, each student would have $25, and some students would have more based on free lunch.
Correct. So I'm happy to follow up with the breakdown of how many students would receive the 25 and how many would receive the 500.
No, I'm just trying to get
Yeah.
an idea how this thing's going to work and how much money really a student might have in a meeting. After the 4 years, what happens?
So after the 4 years, part of my role in this position is to fundraise and to make this program sustainable beyond the 4 years. So the money that is being invested in the student's account, that is money that has already been allocated to us by the county. So that is money that's put into the omnibus account, and it is there for those students depending on how the market does. So we want to be real transparent. It's an investment account. So if the market goes up, that money will go up. If it goes down, it goes down. But at the end of year 4, those students will have those
Can money
funds.
go into the accounts other than through whatever? And families put their own.
So families are not able to contribute directly to the My Future Fund account, but they can open up a corresponding Michigan Education Savings Plan 529, and it's linked. And we're working real closely with the MESP staff to help talk families through what that process is and how to get signed up.
I think it's a really nice idea. I'm trying to figure out. The regular practice. I've been through this a few times.
Yeah, and part of the research around the children's savings account is both about, it's not just about the money being there, but it's about planting the seed that college and career training is a possibility for students. So research has shown even by having a really small account or small balance in an account that is set aside specifically for college, that increases the likelihood that a student enrolls in college by 3 times. So part of it is having that conversation about sparking that seed for families around how do they plan and think about college. And then the hope is that also through additional fundraising that we're supplementing that $25 so that over time it becomes more that students could use for things that are related to their college and career training. But we recognize it, likely is not going to cover the entire cost of college, but it's about starting the conversation and building the scaffolding.
If a family already has a MASP account, can they add this to that?
So I think it depends on the type of MESP account that they have. I'll have to double check which ones can be linked. So they can link their MESP account in the portal, but the money isn't going to mix together. They'll have their My Future Fund money and then their individual MESP money collectively if they wanted to link them together to show in one place how much they had saved.
Okay, yeah, so I have a couple questions. So number one, I love this idea, I love the concept. I like the idea of the scaled or quasi-scaled funding depending on socioeconomic status. But I also have a couple concerns regarding the district's, how it will impact the district in terms of administratively. I'm assuming we'll have to have something on our website that says, if you have a question about your MESP account, call so and so. But I'm anticipating that the secretarial staff will, administrative staff will receive tons of calls. I forgot my password, I don't know how to get in, how much money is in my account, and so if that question, and then and just making sure that it's coming from the WISD, but also this question of, generally speaking, I have a hard time tracking my own money. And so if I have 3 or 4 or 5, 6 different accounts all over the place, and it's only $25, how are they going to remember, that it's there? And so it's just from a practical standpoint, how are we supporting families with making sure that they're on track? Are they going to be receiving, access to services so that they can do some targeted, this is where you want to be in 10 years and how much you can save and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So to go back to your first question about it's sort of administrative support, this is where our advisory committee has been so helpful because people on our advisory committee who are in schools have said, okay, you need to make this as easy as possible to not be an extra burden on frontline school staff folks. And so our goal is to provide as much as we can in terms of helping people know where to redirect people, because we know that folks are going to come to schools to ask questions. So being able to know, this is where you go, here's the email, here's the website, and providing that through some videos, through collaboration with you all to tell us, that's part of the relationship with schools is what is the best way to help get that word out and not make it feel burdensome for staff who are already doing so many, people are wearing so many hats already. So that's an important thing that we definitely want to be attentive to, but also recognizing that that's the folks that people go to first. So how do we make sure that they have the information that they need to be able to get families to the right spot? And then the question around how are families going to know about that this money is here and keep up with it. Our goal with the program is that this is a long-term program. And so we're traveling with families along the way through partnerships with schools. We're back to school night in 6th grade. Maybe that looks very different than how it looked in 1st grade. Hey, remember you have this account. Here's how you check it. And then building that in, I can imagine with some of the financial literacy requirements that are coming up for high schoolers, even being able to build that in to some conversations of, if you have this account, remember, here's how you access it, that we want to scaffold that along the way so that it is top of mind for families as they are planning and thinking about their higher education expenses. And part of a larger package of how we're talking about the different avenues or resources that are available to them.
I think so. I mean, this concept of financial literacy and encouraging, understanding, and assisting families through the process. I don't know whether that's a challenge with ours much, but I have kids that are starting college, and so I know that this discussion is front of mind for us.
How does it work if the student leaves Dexter with an account if they go to another school in the county?
So if they transfer within the county, they'll just, their account will remain because we'll be able to see, oh, now you're in Saline, or here's where you're next. We'll be using the UIC number behind the scenes to help us keep up with students as they defer. For students that leave Washtenaw County, any public school within Washtenaw County, we will provide, that's one of our advisory committee is working through these last little details about, we want students to still have the opportunity to retain their account, but their families will have to take some type of action, probably in high school, to acknowledge that they would still like their accounts to remain active. We don't want to just say you've left the county, the money is gone, but we do need to have a check in place to make sure that they still know, to your point around, if you got this account in second grade and then you left the county, how are you going to remember by the time you're 20 that you have those funds there? So wanting to have families have a way to verify, yes, we still want to keep our account is part of those final processes that we're working through.
Is there gonna be an age limit at what they need to access? I had just had a graduate of class of 67 that's re-enrolling for another degree. Contact, looking for a copy of transcripts, etc. So predicting the future, how
Right, our
I don't
advisory,
expect you to answer that. I just wonder if there's thought on, reasonableness.
right now we've got age 26 as being when up until age 26, and then also understanding that for folks who maybe enroll in the military or AmeriCorps or something along those lines, that there could be additional time if they need an extension. But our advisory committee has said that 26 feels like a good amount of giving a little bit more of wiggle room than just 4 years and you should be done, but providing some time boundedness of that. And then if students don't use the funds, it'll roll back into that pool of funding for future students. What's that?
It would look like earnings up.
So just a sort of a clarifying question, because I feel like this is one that will probably come up for families, because our geographical structure is so interesting with schools. I'm assuming then that any district who's part of the WISD, any student enrolled in any district that's part of the WISD is eligible, regardless of their city of residence or county of residence. Because I could see some confusion among families about their physical house boundaries versus Washtenaw County.
Yeah, so if they are enrolled in a school that is within WISD service area, even if they do not live within the boundaries of Washtenaw County, they will be eligible for an account. But the first check is, are you enrolled as of the October fall pupil count for this year, only 2022? If you were in that pupil count, you will be counted. You will receive an account this spring, and then next year we'll catch up anybody. But yes, if they live outside of the boundaries, they still will be eligible, but they have to attend a public school in a public district or a public school academy.
Okay, and then I think you said this, but I just want to clarify what you said. If a student misses that first or fifth grade year for whatever reason, it sounded like the next year you would see, oh, the sixth grader doesn't have an account, so we'll start one for them. Is that correct?
That is correct. And then
Funded.
they'll receive the $25 deposit. The COVID recovery deposit will be based on if funding is available, because the funds for those are based on their year that they should have, kind of their cohort year of getting those dollars. So if we realize, oh, there's some additional funds there, then we might open that up. But I think everybody would get the account and the $25 starting deposit so that they could then earn additional incentives along the way.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because that's another thing that I feel like families will get itchy about if a parent gets transferred for work for a year or whatever happens for any given year. I just want to make sure that families really do understand they will be eligible. So.
And part of what we talked about in the advisory committee too is if somebody, leaves the district and then comes back in, as long as they've taken that action to keep their account, they would still have the account when they return to the district.
What if they would be parents transfers cross country? Ninth, 10th grade. Child wants to make reason, I got to. Money still be available, or once they have to graduate?
They don't have to graduate, but they will have to take some type of action to verify that they would like their accounts kept open if they have left the district.
Okay. I can see it's one of the money's sitting there for 25, 35 years.
Yeah. Yeah, so-
Paying 6 months after interest.
Right, so our goal would be to really do some good education for families, especially if they are, as we're telling them about the program, as we're talking about the program, and then thinking about what would that verification of making sure that we've done our due diligence to follow up with them. Okay, we know we've moved, we've tried this email that we have, we've done this, we've sent, here are some steps we've taken to try to help you know that you have these funds available.
One more question, sorry. About this question. So someone in the role comes or act, with the packet, they let you see the program, they like it, they don't have to call it savings plan. Can they self-enroll, pay $20 on the wall to get into the program?
So they would have to wait until the fall count information next spring to be part of the program, but they could set up their own individual 529 plan anytime. And then once they got their My Future Fund account, we could help them link them together. So they still could have access to all the other pieces of the My Future Fund program. They're just not going to get that account.
Thank you.
All
But
right.
wait, future value, just checking, just for
Yeah.
my next question. So future value of $25 is roughly $55. Is that right? 13 years is 6%. I mean,
I did it at 5.
yeah, about right. So just
That's better.
6%, yeah, that's about right, because I did it at 5%.
$53 after 13 years, single.
I think this is very much about like having families know that there is something to be helping them, and it's the monetary value from this wing of the program is minimal. The value of this wing of the program is actually the support, the continued presence in front of kids, something coming home every year, probably something at back to school night, perhaps something for seniors at graduation time. So I think it's just the what's in front of you constantly piece of it. Plus,
And
then
hopefully
start
fundraising.
comparing with
What's your goal or expectation?
Well, that is a great question. And I have been so focused on trying to get us launched that will be the next time I come and present to you. I can have a better sense of what that means.
Yeah,
And I think there's a lot of philanthropic folks that other CSAs utilize to provide. There's some programs that have an endowment that is able to provide the funds. They write grants, they work with donors and pull in funds from a lot of different sources to provide that support for students and families.
We're happy to take it for.
Yeah.
Can I ask one?
Yeah.
What does this look like across our state in terms of how many communities have this sort of opportunity?
Yeah, so I think right now, I believe that there are 15 other CSA programs in Michigan. Washtenaw County, I believe, will be the largest once we get up and running. But Lansing has had a program for a while. There's one in Muskegon. There's
but the one in Kalamazoo, is that similar or is that entirely different?
that's different because that one is more of the promise that the money is there when you get ready to use it, where this one is giving the money up front. So I think a similar idea about how are we planting seeds so that people know that there's something ready for them when they get ready to graduate. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, one question for those. How about the financial literacy? No, the school doesn't. I think. Is there anything for parents? Because I think the biggest setback for parents, kids sometimes are parents that can't afford anything, never can afford anything. They get to the kid's mindset. When there's a pathway, you just been told we don't have the funding to do it, you don't see that.
that is a big part. One of our goals is that helping families sort of have that financial education, join the financial mainstream, if that is, maybe they're an unbanked family, helping to work with some of our local partners to provide that education and training, because that's very real around how do we help families understand what's out there for students to be able to have those conversations, and providing this initial investment opens that door to that conversation. Oh, well, here's how you can set up a Michigan Education Savings Plan investment account. Here's somebody from MESP who's going to sit with you to set that up and get you ready to put that first initial investment in there. So that definitely is part of our work, is to also partner. There are a lot of great folks in the community already doing that work. And so how do we leverage the knowledge and the resources that are already out there, and then add this in as another stream of how we're talking to families.
My point wasn't really to say that it's a small amount. It is a small amount, but my point really is to say, to get to what you're saying there, which is setting goals and how to get to those goals, and holding, assisting families with meeting their, whatever their goal is. And so if it is college, or if it's, career tech, whatever the goal is to help them say, okay, I need to get to $5. And then by the fact that you can't add to this account, it complicates it for many families. And so I don't know if there's a way to decrease that barrier of just having one account, and saying, okay, you're going to be at $53. If you want to be at 5,000, this is what you need to be, $1 a month, whatever it is, $3 a month, and then you provide them some. Anyway, but I like it.
I like that idea of those tangible steps. Here's what you can do next to add to this, or here's something, here's a training you could go to learn about, career technical training. So these are, thank you all.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming. On the agenda, put this under presentations. After some reports, we'll get into action items.
Great.
Thank you. Just so you know how the agenda is.
All right, perfect. Thank you all.
We're hoping Brian will talk about the ISD budget.
That's fair. And we need to talk to our board about it.
Figured while you were here.
Okay, we'll move on to our school safety update. Principal for Operations Craig Paul will share the results of the recent safety audit.
Perfect. Can you hit the green and green? Who's on south and east? Yep. All good. Thank you. It's been a wonderful group to be part of. Sarah's group there for the month. It's been great to sit there and have that learning, and all the entities there to learn how to support our students, want to support our students. That's been wonderful. Another thing Craig didn't know he signed up. There you go. That's all right. It's been one of those great ones. Just like this, one of the other pieces to my role that there we go, Chris asked, was school safety. So so this is working in combination with Barb Santo, our building administrators, Jared Wiesel, Deputy Wiesel, Chris, about school safety plans. So part of what the work is, part of our grant monies are 97 monies that came through. So there's grant money through section 97, there's 97C, and there's also 97D. I'm going to start with the school safety review, which is the 97C monies. So what we had is part of the grant was they want to do all schools do a school safety review. So companies came over from the state of Michigan that said, we're going to charge school districts $2,000 per building to do a review of those buildings. Now that was $2,000 for the high school, $2,000 for Bates, $2,000 for the Jenkins baby house. But it was an in-depth review all the way through of all of those buildings. Sirianni is all the way. There's 13 of them technically is what we wanted to go through. We wanted to make sure each of our facilities we went through and had the plans. So we had called around and looked at what other districts, who they had used, part of the recommendations. And we went with SEC, Secure Education Consultants. They were also part of what helped write some of the standards for MDE about what they wanted to look for those qualifications. So that was the company we went with. Part of their role, they came in,
They met with, well, here, let me start here. So, again, it was $2,000 per building. It was that comprehensive safety and security assessment. Part of that information gathering was interviews with the leadership, management, and staff, on-site vulnerability assessments, and then document reviews. So we set them up with every site of the building principal. Brian Schuler did B&G, Denise Smith did transportation. So we hooked them up with every, Gina Benson did Jenkins. So we hooked them up with every person who was part of it, just to make sure they did a full comprehensive look of every building. They walked through them, they looked at documents, they looked at our school safety plans. They did the whole 9 yards. They spent a lot of time in each and every building. I believe it was 3 full days of coming through and reviews they did in our buildings. What they did while they were here on site, so they looked at the environmental pieces around our buildings, building access, as far as employee, visitor, contractor, vendors, who has access, how do they have access? Interior, exterior, our communication plans within districts, so within district, within buildings, how that works. Our grounds, parking lots, they looked at our entry doors. We also talked about our emergency drills and emergency operations. So how do they all work? We're talking with our staff. We talked about training, what training we have had, what training are we possibly going to have. Emergency equipment supplies, our school resource officer operations, security operations, and then the video surveillance systems. So again, at the bottom, they coordinated with myself, principals, Officer Wiesel, all those pieces. So that's what they went through while they were here. They gave us, when they sat at the end of talking through, they also sat then with Chris and Barb and myself and Jared. Santo went through what their recommendations. We had a 20-page report that we went through step by step of the needs. So some of the highlighted needs here, what we have for recommendations of moving forward, they talk about better signage in front of our buildings, as in main entrance, right? Creekside, we all know where the main entrance are. You're new to Dexter, what door and parking lot do I go into Creekside, right? Where is the high school? So we're looking at our signage in front of our buildings. How do we put the right signs just to tell people where to go and where they need to be? Signage for all the exterior doors. What a lot of districts and buildings are doing now, they're having numbered doors, right? So I brought these as an example. So these are going to be going up over top of our doors. To know what number, right? Main entrance will be 1. They go clockwise. The reason difference of color of working with our safety security. Green would be there's a key or a fob to get in. We want the maroon color, not this one, but here's the number. So these will be going up both on the inside and outside of the doors. So you will have on the outside, you'll be able to see door 37 when you're outside. When you look on the inside, there'll be a 37 on the inside. So that way, render. So these are going to be going up. We have these ordered. They're sitting on Brian's desk. That'll be one of the projects this summer is get every building in the district numbered. That'll be there. Access for resource officers and first responder. Officer Wiesel has made sure that if people are dispatched, do they have keys? Do they have fobs? Make sure they have access for whatever was an emergency situation here as far as fire.
We have fire lockboxes.
Yep.
But for responding officers, right now they keep accessing all the local cars that are in the Dexter area. But they're working on how to get it across the country so that they can get in all the buildings. Just for others that we.
First responder, also the ambulance.
Yeah, I believe so. That's what we're
I
making sure.
believe they can use the lockbox.
But that's what we're learning, Dick, to make sure everybody's very clear about if they need access to our buildings, how do they get there. We did a lot of talking about our practice drills. So Barb has worked very closely every year to update our policy and make sure it works, make sure we have the right training as far as Alice training. We talked about different things of scenarios, actually using our emergency buttons, our to-go bags to make sure that there always is a review from as far as Barb talked with our building administrators to make sure things are set and ready, emergency plans within our buildings. But it's just some other steps they recommended. The emergency buttons on the building, one of their recommendations was they're there. Actually go up and push right next to it to make sure you're actually that as part of your step, right? A lot of times, we push the button and it's like, let's actually practice that. So we've talked a lot about how do we, go farther with some of our drills. Security cameras at the front entrances. So part of the other is that upgrade section 97. So within the
What's an emergency?
emergency what?
Not the emergency plan.
Within some of our main office areas, there is a red button to push. And what that it does is it's an alert. Now, exactly what each button does in each building to alert Dick, I'll let you know after that happens when we run through it here this summer. But they are
Installed at different times.
Yeah, they're installed at different times. So
notify somebody or it's some kind of tone in the building?
Some notify, some
Yeah.
lock doors.
Okay.
So that's the clarity, but again, when you ask, there's been enough turnover in buildings, people aren't exactly sure, so we're gonna align those, make sure
Is
that we understand.
Notify the right people and push the buttons.
Yep, that's all part of those procedures and practices.
Which key works where?
Part of what else we were also reviewing was the security cameras, part of that section 97 money. So there, again, as I spoke earlier, there's 97 money, 97C and 97D monies. We were appropriated a little over $395,000 for section 97 money. That's going to security and cameras. So we have already done a full evaluation of all of our cameras, Dexter High School, actually all of our buildings, where the areas that we wish there was a camera, where we want to upgrade the cameras to fishbowl cameras, more cameras in the parking lot. So Rick has moved forward with getting the grant and bid to get those cameras moving forward. So that will just help give us access to those front entrances as well. There are some recommendations about where cameras could be coming in the front entrance of the school. So we took that in as part of our plan to make sure we have cameras where they need to be. Window coverage was another one of the recommendations of putting just films up, like where it would say Dexter Dreadnoughts on it from there, but it was like one way you could see out but not see in. So there's some recommendations, and as a district standard around classrooms, as you walk through buildings, teachers have classroom windows, but they're all covered up. When to cover, when not to cover windows. That's kind of part of another one of our safety protocols and processes. Again, communication. How do we communicate when there is an emergency? So again, part of those systems of looking in the district. Is it a radio system? Is it a phone and texting? Is it classroom systems? So just aligning how to make sure we're just all on the same page, being as effective as we can in an emergency situation.
We have been looking at, for example, in the elementaries, they use handheld radios. Some buildings they generally do the texting, some have phones that they've used. We are looking at other devices. We have sound systems in classrooms that teachers compare to where a microphone. Do we just get the devices where the system is right on the mic, but then what other upgrades we're trying to match through? How to make it consistent across it.
And then what are those steps for communication, right? I think one of the best examples was that how many years ago we had the fire tornado whistle went right at bus time, and all of a sudden Cornerstone became the hub. And it's like, okay, who's sending who out? And all of a sudden power started to go, so then phones started to die. So how do you make sure you're getting the right stuff? So it's kind of like a little live lesson there for us about how can we make sure those plans are set aside of where it comes from, right? Is it the information comes from Hope, Chris, like where does it come, right?
That was
Just to
one of the
clarify.
moments where we figured out we needed a different third system. So Blackboard, what we've changed since then, we needed a mobile access opportunity because when our power went down or internet goes down, our phones are internet based. But then since that point, we've added a redundant network or a second network for internet. We have a Comcast line that we run that doesn't run on the county network. It allows us to basically flip over if the county network's down. We can flip over to that, but if that's down, we have to work out a system. The old phone lines are no longer used. So when power goes out,
You do
worse than redundant system.
you doing a series of pre-recorded messages? Or is it gonna be a secretary or sections?
We don't have, currently right now, we don't have pre-recorded messages that send out in case of emergency, but it's a good thought to have it lined up.
You just write them out in advance.
We have scripts.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of script.
People can, and
We have scripts.
Okay.
if you can pre-record them, all you do is send. It's easy.
Should we be planning on coming up with some local money to accomplish some of this?
As of right now, the pieces we have in place, as far as we're able to take care of that within our building budgets right now. If you're talking about the signage and different pieces coming up, right? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I'm really wondering, we've got a lot of money there, I suspect it's never enough. It's free money.
Currently, right now, with the upgrades we have with Sharon working like she is in the grants and Chris, I think we've taken full advantage of everything we have right now that we need. If I feel that we are short on something, I'd be able to come to Chris and figure out a plan. But right now, I feel.
For the moment, might be okay.
Yeah, for the moment, I think we're
I
okay.
didn't want to ask the question.
No, for the moment, I feel we are okay. As we look at it, another recommendation was some of our doors, right? There's, when deliveries come, there's nothing, how do you know when somebody knocks on the door that it is the gentleman, that the person delivering milk? Peepholes are going in the doors, right? Real quick solutions to make sure we can see who's coming in and who's not.
Worst case, I suppose, is the next spot issue. Fill gaps if necessary.
If there's gaps, hopefully we have it there. One of the last ones we got money for as well was section 97D. And that's critical response mapping that they look at, where each building, you have an aerial basically that if there is emergency response would happen, the correct people have the maps to know exactly, go to door 37, it's in room 512. They know exactly where those maps are layered in. So we also, again, took recommendation of the company we were using, is one countywide. I worked very hard to make sure we were aligned so that when emergency response was called, that one group used the Timus mapping and one used the Vestergaard mapping system and one used a lot, like, what are all the same? So if emergency personnel is called to Chelsea or Celine, we're all one.
Did they put what their locations are, like where the ambulance is gonna locate, where is the press gonna locate? And that's one of the biggest things that came out of all the, unfortunately, all the shootings. Even in all the ambulances couldn't get to the front because law enforcement, off-duty law enforcement came block, not purposely blocked all the roads, just park their vehicles, whatever. So there should be a plan. The law enforcement parks, off-duty law enforcement parks, where the ambulances go, where parents go to, and it should all be on that map. So there's no confusion. No, you don't belong here. Park your butt, go over there. Is your press, you know, where the press is going to be. Is that all on that? I mean, it should be on.
There is part of that. I'll make sure I double check because we're working in collaboration right now to make sure it works. I think the hardest part, I think, Daniel, was like, what do we put out for the public to know and what don't we know, that we have an internal thing that we're taking care of.
You don't,
But to have that mapping system is something we do need in place.
you don't
right,
put out all
for every.
public, but when they start, people start running here, parents start running here.
There is a plan.
There's a
There is
plan,
a plan,
and then
yeah.
even law enforcement, whoever's out there can say, over here, over here.
Yeah.
And you know, Tim has told, go over and talk to parents.
Yeah, so that's part of that, of the grant work. So I'll double check with the person we've been emailing back and forth to make sure they have the information they have, and I'll make sure that that's one of the things we talk about. I kind of wanted to end, so that's the part of it. One of the things was is at the SEC, when they finished, summary, just for props for us of what we've been doing. The SEC believes that Dexter Community Schools has done a remarkable job in developing and executing extremely comprehensive safety and security plans, and that currently provide very safe and secure environments for staff and students. It was obvious to SEC that there has been a significant amount of thought and effort put into successfully integrating sound physical design features with comprehensive policies and procedures. So it is just, they were happy with that. So that speaks to what Barb has done to make sure plans have been in place and keep it updated constantly what's happening in their building. So they were just recommendations that they saw that worked.
And there was more in the report, but this is what we felt like. Publicly measured. Thank you. Yeah, Craig's been putting down uncharted waters on all those 97s.
We're getting things in place.
Or 97 with one.
Yeah, I know. That's the
I
thing,
think we're
but-
getting another 97 next year. Yeah, it looks like that's gonna be in the recommendations from some of it.
97 year mark for security and safety.
Yeah, it was $107 a kid. Everything I've read, it looks like, and everybody I've talked to, it's like that, and hopefully, but how many more years? Not sure. Sure, you want to hit red?
So get straight on us. Thank you.
We'll move on to our first opportunity for public participation. During public comment, each speaker is allotted a maximum of 5 minutes for a total of 30 minutes unless otherwise notified. Each speaker will be asked to announce his or their name and district of residence and indicate if they represent any organizations or agencies. No person may speak more than once on the same subject during a single meeting. Those wishing to receive a personal response from the board or superintendent must leave a public comment form available at the meeting entrance and on our website. In addition, as presiding officer, I would like to remind everyone that public comments should pertain to Dexter Community School District matters and concerns related to the operation of the schools or to matters within the authority of the board. Those who wish to speak shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. Also, speakers addressing the board shall take into consideration rules of common courtesy. The board speakers who make attacks of personal nature and or who do not abide by the rules of common courtesy will be reminded of such rules by the board president or presiding officer. Such individuals may be asked to leave the meeting if their behavior is disruptive or interferes with the orderly progress of the meeting. Also, please understand that board members do not respond to public comments, but we will listen very carefully and will follow up as appropriate. If there's an immediate need for clarifications, we do so after the speaker's allotted time. Is there anyone who wishes to participate in public comment at this time? All right, we'll move on to administrative and board updates, starting with the superintendent.
So we held a solar update last Thursday. We had a handful of attendees. We sent out the information on donations. We received some small donations coming in. I have to look at the total so far. It's not 50 or 70,000. We'll keep working. We have an RFP out for a design build, and that is due at the end of the month. I want to thank Craig for all of his work, and then Sharon spent days putting together about as comprehensive an RFP as you can find, including all of our electrical usage bills by interval rate, et cetera. It's all on the website. You can see it all. Test Fest starts tomorrow. So we will be, our kids will be taking test after test after test. Pieces up tomorrow. Congratulations. Griffin gets the laugh. And his time starts in May. Yeah. So, but we have lots of tests. They moved the SAT to Wednesday. So instead of, it used to be on Tuesday, now you're doing the stuff. But PSATs are happening. All the M steps are starting. It's a couple hours at most grade levels, but in the high school, it's multiple days. So.
Yay.
That's 2023. You get a t-shirt.
All right, moving on to the board president's update. I don't have anything. So we'll move on to the student representatives.
Very little updates. We're getting towards the end of the year. Test Fest is here. Spring sports are in pretty much full effect. I think every spring sport should be started now. I think they had girls tennis auditions today, so that should be like the latest starting one there is. So in addition to all of that, this Friday is the high school teacher appreciation breakfast. So keep an eye out for that. We have help by the NHS. It's just breakfast, and then we have every teacher is able to come down and just get some food and get served by the students for once instead of the other way around. So it'll be held this Friday. And then
yeah, other than that, the Strive for Safer Driving campaign started up today, which is a really good campaign to like make students aware about like drug driving and everything like that. And I think this is going to be a really successful campaign because last year it was really good. And today at lunch, they were like, distributing t-shirts and just making people aware. So I think it's something very.
If you've been to the high school recently, you see out by Alabré fields, we have that crushed car. That's what that's for. You've seen like the totally demolished car. It's like the car that's kind of an accident display. And then in the lunchroom today, there was a drug driving simulator, which we have a company come in and do a drug driving simulator, put the goggles on you. It's like, so that's like you drive drunk so students can see. It's got like a line down the hallway for it. So it's good that, people want to do it. We got a pretty good turnout from it. And that was for every lunch today. Times this week. So it's been good. Things are wrapping up. So slowing down. That's it.
Thank you. We don't have any consent items, so we'll move on to our action items, starting with the social media lawsuit. Our packet contains a draft resolution from the Bruderly law firm regarding a class action lawsuit intended to hold social media companies accountable for irresponsibly marketing to minors. We need a motion and then discuss.
I'll move that the Board of Education adopt the attached resolution authorizing the superintendent to contract with Grants Law Group APLC to participate in the social media lawsuit.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. We move on to discussion.
We did the Jewel lawsuit, same day for settlement. And there's changes in practice. There are social media is completely unregulated as far as kids. We have 8 and 9-year-old kids with cell phones on social media. If you look at some of these, for example, I'll just point out Snapchat. if you look at the logo, it looks like it's aimed at kids. It is, our kids aren't able to handle it, they're actively marketing it. Our parents struggle, I mean, I can't tell you how many parents thank us when we send out, we've done a bunch of creepside saying, your kid's not 13, they don't belong on social media. There's, I can't tell you how many parents, we had to be the heavy to help them be able to get a kid. Something has to change if all the schools across the country join in. I mean, I remember when Seattle and Pittsburgh when that came out, I'm like, fine. So to be able to join in with the student, something has to change. It's not really about the money, it's about something changing, because we spend administratively an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out what happened on social media between kids or adults. But it's marked, or kids and adults, but it's marketed, the marketing towards kids. The adults struggle with it, but the kids, 8, 9, comes. They say you need to say your birthday, kids know how to scroll away. It's not exactly the highest security system.
It's true.
I think that in my early days, the big deal was to say, we're not going to take money from Coca-Cola to teach kids to drink Coke. Right. That was the level we dealt with originally.
Any other discussion, any questions? Yeah, I agree.
Sarah, I think I like it too, but to Dick's point, is there, and this is probably some conversation, so you can tell me I'm off base, but is there any discussion of not having phones in school?
That'd be
It's
in
just-
some ways. And in other ways, the challenges are part of society. Like I might sit here.
Right.
It's, yeah, trying to figure out what we're.
But the other problem is that there have been many times when students having phones mitigated some real tragic situations.
Is that we do have kids that, I don't know how many of you guys have classmates that do all the writing on the phone.
Or at least if like the computer's not working or dies or something, it's.
I honestly like the voice to text system better on my phone than I do off my computer. I use voice to text. But I can't get it to work on the computer. It's just.
I think also another big thing with just like parents will give the kid to someone, like I had an iPod forever, like just because I need a ride home or something. I mean, it only works on internet, but if you're at the school internet, then you can like call for a ride home or something. It's better than going to the office and there's like a minor kid saying, I need to call my mom to be able to basketball practice early or something. So it's always that.
That is separate.
Yeah.
But it is a topic. The social media lawsuit though would be,
It's just, but
It's-
it's money.
what's that?
It's just that we get some money.
Well, we get money,
I mean, that's-
honestly,
This
something has to change.
But that's not this.
This,
This just us getting money.
so what happened with the Jewel lawsuit is there was part of the settlement is how the marketing would happen and change, so there are few regulations, something has to force some kind of regulation. to put
Well, I kind of think it's important just for our district also, both to communicate to our general community that we are both aware of these issues, that they very much impact the district and the administrative staff on a daily basis, so that the board is aware of the level of disruption that social media is providing. So I think by joining the lawsuit, we are both saying to, you know, I think the larger community, yes, we're another school that's impacted, but also letting our local community know in a very formal way. I mean, I know the school sends things out saying, hey, please keep your kids off of social media. And yes, we're having these troubles and here's the limits of what we can do. By joining a suit like this, I do think that our larger community will understand the greater impact and more than just a sort of sidebar conversation like, oh, the principal said this in the newsletter. Like, no, this is a serious issue and our district is taking a stand on it. So I actually think that it is a impactful thing for our community to know that it is a very serious issue and not just one that's like a Friday note.
And the negative impact, it is negatively impacting kids
Yeah, that's.
and actively marketed to kids. The cartoonish logos.
Joe, can
Yeah, they're actively marketed to accounts.
I can't see grades yet.
But it's a major problem in every school in the country and with kids across the country. Some countries have put in other safeguards. We have very few. It's all in an honor system. And the honor system,
It's a part of the question. Student reps, or the spring break on reading. So I support this. But there's a movement among students now. And it's gaining some popularity where students and schools are self-regulating themselves, saying we're not gonna be on our phones during the day, we're not gonna be Snapchatting, we're not, because they know it, they're smarter than we are, they know it's not good for them. There's a movement where the kids will sign a pledge. You know, just self-regulating business, self-regulating, start taking pictures of everybody, not doing the massive stuff, doing like 8 to 5 or something. Just to live a normal, it's an old fashioned.
I haven't heard of any direct pledges, but I know that there's a good amount of people that, I mean, plenty of kids in high school, once you get further on, your classes start getting harder. You just realize once you get your first test grade back, like at some point you gotta stop being on your phone or else it's gonna just keep showing up on your report card more than so. I don't know, I haven't heard of anyone taking a direct pledge, but I do think it balances itself out if the kid cares about doing well in school.
Find us.
It's not just the phones, it's access to the computer. I mean, if they don't have their phone, they can still go to Snapchat through their school provided, iPod or whatever, Chromebook. So it's a more complicated conversation, but I do think there's a lot of value in providing for kids that have decided that they do not want to be distracted by whatever it is. It doesn't have to be TikTok. YouTube, it could be whatever, that they have access to written material so that they can actually focus without having the electronic. It's very easy. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself, but you start tabbing around or you get you have to have the verification code and try to put your phone away, but the verification code do whatever. So it's just pulls you back in and it's very hard.
and the algorithms for social media sites are written to make you stay on. So everybody's been caught in the death scroll. And I watch kids all the time, just they're in it, they don't even know how much time has passed. And it's really, it continues to be things they will. Good or bad.
The districts say we save money because we don't have written materials, but on the opposite, it's a give and take, right? So. They
work through they turn the phone into hotspot.
We have a filter on them, so there's sometimes I need to do something for work that I can't get access.
It does. The access and the marketing and the algorithms for social media is. This is our one chance to try to address it.
Any other discussion? Put it to a vote, on the motion on the table, that we approve adopt the attached resolution authorizing the superintendent to contract with France Law for KPLC to participate in the social media lawsuit. This is the action. We'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Alabré.
Aye.
Bruderly. Aye. Greatorex.
Aye.
Ms. Kangas.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
All right, we'll move on to our WISD memorandum of understanding. Earlier in the meeting, board members heard the presentation from Sarah Saylor of WISD My Future Fund program.
I move that the Board of Education approve the attached memorandum of understanding regarding the My Future Fund and authorize the superintendent or the designee to execute the attached data sharing agreement and all of the tasks outlined in the MOU.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
You saw a presentation, pretty thorough.
And I appreciate you answering our questions. All right.
Is there any reason we would?
No, Susie, we've been talking about this concept for years. It started with looking at conversation promise, and this has been years in the making. And then through a pandemic, there's an influx of funds to do this. And we even sent Craig to go. Like, congratulations.
So again, because this is an action item, we'll do a roll call vote. There's no more
I do
discussion.
one thing though, will there be somewhere just like probably on the district page or something where it says like what data is being shared? Because I know it's a decent amount of like parents out in the district. I mean, I know myself, whenever I see like the term sharing data, you know, it just, you get skeptical because everything wants to share data now. You don't know what that means. So I think it would just ease a lot of minds if it said like what was being pulled somewhere on the.
We're really not sharing any data that the ISD doesn't already have
Okay.
access to. It's giving reason for the access. There's an unbelievable amount of data that's shared through state databases. It's what happens in the ISD staff has to help us get to the data and set up the databases. They see the data already. This would allow, it puts in there the use and item. So this entire package on the website item, but we can include information that outlines the use and items where it's stored. It's not data that would be of major concern to anybody. It's not already.
Yeah, it's not new data. Yeah. you just
Yeah, I'm
have to-
trying to think out it.
I
It's
will-
not data to try to sell something.
Okay.
To Griffin's point, though, he is not wrong, that families in our community very much balk at sharing things, so being very clear will be helpful.
Good points. All right, any other? All right. So we almost have the roll call vote.
Mrs. Bruderly,
Aye.
Greatorex.
Aye.
Kangas,
Aye.
Lundy. Chair Alabré.
All right. Moving on in our agenda, we have our discussion items. We don't have any. We have our second opportunity for the comments. Same rules apply for the first time. Anyone would like to participate in the public comment portion? Okay, we'll move on to our board comments. Anybody have any comments? All right.
Dexter Conway.
Good.
So,
Dexter.
the Dexter still has to be in the population.
Let's see.
I would say.
I do find it strange that they're recognizing things that they don't as for our students.
We did it at a football.
We did have
game.
football. game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're getting a lot of this. Seems to be bad.
We did a fair amount of social.
Why don't we try this? So. It's just.
Take one some at the board.
Well,
meetings.
no, I don't know how it's all, we got so many things to recognize. But it just seems funny that the city is picking out a couple of things out of the whole year, and getting publicity on it. And we do it fairly regularly and nobody knows.
That was part of the reason for the athletics mag, but we have the Making Waves,
Yes, okay.
but we have that magazine that we do, and I feel like I was a student and having, it's an honor to go in front of the board once, but we have teams that would be here several years in a row, and I don't know like what's meaningful.
What's it called? And truthfully, they should have done this 6 months ago.
Yeah.
They did, as a recognized football team, who did in the States, it had to run, face it, and then someone said, talking to the parents, said, they can't recommend longer.
And we've been trying to get the sign up data.
Well,
We need equity on sometimes probably, because I would imagine that's, you see the publicity, but what the village, the city is doing.
they did do a good article. I want to feel like a mini dynasty. Or that they mentioned Lindy and our
No, I know they do a lot of stuff. I'm just saying it ought to be fairly reasonable against all teams, not charity.
I mean, we agree, that's why we did the magazine, so everybody has like their page and what they want, what they are proud of. Sometimes the team didn't do well and but the kids all progressed. And the coach had an opportunity to say that.
Yeah.
That's what my kids.
That's what,
That's,
those are 3 times a year.
yeah, those are nice.
Yeah.
We do good job.
Props to Melanie McIntyre, yes, she really has to, one of the things that's hard is getting people to share that information, so if you know a parent on the team, you can get it, but if you don't know a parent on the team, it's surprisingly hard to get all that information, and Melanie McIntyre does a tremendous job hunting down everybody.
It's not that we don't do stuff, it's a question of whether we do different audiences,
Yeah,
where we catch all the audiences, all the stuff. We make a decision. That's what I just.
Sometimes can't even get us.
Sometimes.
All right, any other comments? All right, we have informational items in the packet, and we move on to the closed session for the superintendent's quarterly evaluation.
I'll move that the Board of Education move into closed session for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's quarterly evaluation.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll have a 5-minute recess.